brand new YSL MYSLF Le Parfum. Let's talk about it.
Here's some codes to save you some cash on your next Middle Eastern niche or designer fragrances.
What's going on, guys? My name is Neeb. Welcome back to AROMATIX. Today we're going to be talking about the brand new YSL MYSLF Le Parfum. This is what the box looks like, and now that we're out of the way, or we got that out of the way, we can keep it moving. That's exactly what you should do with your boxes, okay? There are a lot of people, listen, we're already hoarding fragrances. Don't do the same with the boxes, okay? Let's first look at the subscribe button. It's down there, it's lonely and sad. Just click that bad boy, okay? Appreciate it. Thank you. Now moving on to the fragrance. So, YSL MYSLF Le Parfum. How does it differ? Is it worth the money? And basically, what do I think about it? So, I've actually had a full day's worth of wearing. So I can talk about longevity, performance, etc. But it's still technically kind of a first impression, okay? Really formulating a full review is something that I think should be weighed a little bit heavier than that. But technically speaking, it will be a full review in terms of giving you guys all the aspects in my typical breakdown of my video. We're going to talk about performance, the occasions, the price, and some closing thoughts. And those closing thoughts are going to include my final rating, etc., but that often changes with more wear and longevity. But anyways, let's go ahead and talk about this brand new sexy ass bottle though. So first things first is the presentation. I absolutely love the bottle of both of these, not just the old one, but the original one as well. So the only problem with the original one is that it's a fingerprint magnet, but that's as to be expected with glass. So the fine finish, it's also got these grooves on the sides and very sleek. It makes you feel like you own one of the more exclusive lineups. It's a definite nice and needed change from the typical standard YSL bottles, that square bottle and or the circular with the hexagonal or whatever. I'm not a geometrist, okay? The style caps that they come in. The Eau de Parfum concentration released in 2023, and when it first released, it didn't really get much love, immediately at least. And it's very likely because of the fact that this is a fragrance that you have to truly wear and fully experience to understand its purpose, its uses, and even myself, honestly, when it first came out, you know, that's generally speaking what most people are looking for. That first spray, you're just looking to be uppercut in the face with something just out of this world. Like, it smells like something that probably doesn't exist, but unfortunately, there are only so many notes in the world. And it ended up being something that, while not wowing, ended up being one of my most complimented designer fragrances, and especially during the year of 2023. So I really grew to appreciate and love this, and more so because of the continuous fine reviews of people out there talking about how well it works for them. So as I started to revisit it more often, I almost got complimented every single time I rocked this, turning this into one of the most appropriate and proper signature scents during all year round, especially for the spring and summertime and even the fall time. If you were looking for something that's office appropriate and just soft and easy, mellow, fresh, white florals, this was the one, man. A lot of notes, just like fashion, are coming into style, and generally speaking, we've been seeing a trend of orange flower. We've been seeing it from, you know, something to Altair, and then now this fragrance and a couple of other fragrances that have been releasing as well. So this capitalized on that DNA and did a really good job on exactly that. It also put me in the same vein as fragrances like 1 Million Royal, and although that fragrance doesn't necessarily have orange flower, it did the similar style citruses and florals that was in the mid. During the year of 2023, there was kind of this more white floral take or floral take around these freshies that were softer, and not necessarily just white florals, obviously, but it did this softer floral style men's fragrance that was slightly unisex and worked, and 1 Million Royal being one of those. So I place this in the same category. If you like 1 Million Royal, you'll like this, and vice versa. So notes of this fragrance include bergamot, more bergamot, orange flower, along with some ambrofix and patchouli. Potentially a little bit more than that. I personally get this combination of vetiver and maybe even some cedarwood. So very mass appealing, and this gets a lot of attention. And now in 2024, they finally released this. And like it or not, it's been getting a lot of hype. Could I have potentially, you know, added to that hype? I don't know, but I saw it was going to be a new release. I actually really enjoyed this one, and it was one that grew on me because of my, you know, user experience. So user experience definitely plays a huge role. What might have been a 7.5 ended up being a 9.5 for me because it just worked, man. So now we're talking about this one, Le Parfum, released in 2024. Got my hands on it thanks to Alvin. Alvin, shout outs to you. While on a vacation to New York, he found one of these at a Macy's, and we made it happen. So this bottle right here cost me about $196 full retail price for the 100 ml, and I believe they did have another size that would have been at around $140. So definitely a bit more pricey. So going off the notes for Fragrantica, which can sometimes not really match the official website, which is the case actually with the original. In fact, the original on the actual website just says fresh notes, which is likely to be those bergamots, because typically speaking, that's what they're going to use in almost every single freshie. And then on the official website, it says Orange Blossom Absolute Heart, which is significantly different than what Fragrantica says of Tunisian Orange Blossom. And in the base, it says Ambrofix and Patchouli, whereas the original website just mentions woods accords. It doesn't even say Ambrofix, etc. Fragrantica has always been a source of mine. I love using that website, but sometimes it is important to, you know, kind of cross-reference between the original website and Fragrantica. So for the purpose of Le Parfum, there isn't any information at the time of making this video on their official website. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be available just yet, but per Fragrantica, so take it with a grain of salt, although, like I said, their track record is phenomenal. I love the website. The notes of this include at the top, black pepper, that's it, but you're almost guaranteed to have a couple more notes of that bergamot and certain citruses. And if I had to guess, I would just say some bergamot and maybe some grapefruit. Nothing really outstanding in terms of those citruses. There's absolutely those as well, though. The black pepper isn't really going to be the star player during that top. In the mid, we've also got Orange Blossom, and this is 100% going to be another use of Absolute, and we'll talk about why. And in the dry down, we've got Patchouli, Amber, Bourbon Vanilla, and more than likely same woodsy accords. So what you're going to get with this fragrance is in fact something a lot denser than the original. Now, the original backbone or the original DNA is absolutely used in this one, but literally just as a backbone, and that's it. It's almost like 3 times its concentration in terms of its amber nature and its density. The overall DNA of the Le Parfum is absolutely going to remind you of the original because I would call this a true flanker. The original lives on through this version, except there are quite a few differences, and those differences shining right from the top. Almost immediately, you're going to notice that the bergamot or the citruses is kind of toned down just a little bit, and the orange blossom is amped up like 2 to maybe even 3 times more so. So what was already a pretty hefty dose of this white floral that was relatively indolic is intensified, and because of that, you're going to get a couple of more or newer accords. The other accord that you're going to get almost immediately is going to be this mild spice of black pepper. My tolerance for spicy fragrances is pretty high, so it might just potentially be mild to me. If we're comparing it to other fragrances that we'll talk about here in a second, you'll understand the references and get a better idea for fragrances that you're probably more familiar with. So initially what you get is a very reminiscent scent profile to the original DNA, slightly more peppered and definitely more indolic, but also increasing that orange flower absolute is going to recreate something that's a little bit earthier and slightly green undertone. So orange absolute on its own, generally speaking, in most uses of fragrances, doesn't recreate a green accord for the most part for me. But when you start to use a little bit more of a denser style of orange blossom, especially absolute, it could almost start to shift towards the style of neroli. Considering the fact that they're both orange flower style florals and neroli having a bit more of that green aspect, orange flower is usually a bit brighter, lighter, and fresher. But when you're increasing the accord or you're increasing the intensity and coupling it with other woodsy accords in patchouli and amber, that's what ends up starting to happen, at least with this fragrance here. Although that may be the case, it doesn't necessarily go fully on into the green realm, just giving it a little bit of this earthy accord, very slightly reminiscent to something like osmanthus, but not nearly as earthy or as intense as something like that. And what basically ends up happening is you get this thicker fragrance overall. You still get this overall fabric softener vibe that I got with the original, and that was the best way that I could summarize this fragrance in itself. It kind of has this fabric softener vibe that was fresh and slightly woody. That is literally the best way to summarize this. So with this fragrance, you're still gonna get fabric softener vibe, but just seeming a little bit richer on those florals. Long story short, you guys, we could talk about accords all day. What this ends up smelling like is a denser, richer, and more ambery scent profile than the original, but it's still relatively true. I mean, in terms of how close it is, I would call this about 70% close to the original DNA. It almost literally just turns it into a nighttime more appropriate version. So you still have fabric softener vibe, you still get that orange flower, except it's a bit more intense, it's a bit more earthy, and a bit more ambery, and that's pretty much it. In terms of mass appeal, the original is going to be more mass appealing. In terms of interest points, the Le Parfum is definitely going to work more for interesting factors. I will say, however, though, that in totality, reality, this isn't a fragrance that's like show-stopping. It is, however, a compliment galore. It's literally a compliment magnet. We're talking about the OG and now even this one. We'll talk about the performance here in a second, but for the most part, what I ended up with is getting the same exact vibe as the original, but the original did have a little bit more of these soapy nuances, making it more appropriate for like date night. So let's say you're going about your day. This lasted about 8 to 9 hours. You're about to leave work or go on a date. I would honestly top it off with something like this. Not the most groundbreaking or show-stopping fragrance in the world, and another one in the books of fabric softener vibes, just a little bit sexier basically. And it also, that black pepper does help this one lean more towards the sexy aspect as well. So if we think about fabric softener fragrances, there should be a couple of DNAs that pop into mind. At least if you've been on this channel before, then you know that I refer to a few fragrances like fabric softener vibes, one of which is a newer release called Gucci Guilty Elixir, and another one being Amouage Reflection Man. A lot of people see similarities between both of these, and I can definitely sense it as well, using different notes to recreate accords of Amouage Reflection Man, however being in that same fabric softener realm. Also, Prada L'Homme has fabric softener vibes, so this is another one added to the books of fabric softener vibes, and I can absolutely feel comfortable saying that it does belong or tread in that territory. Now, if you were to take something like this, however, it's a lot more peppery. There's pimento, there's orris, and there's actually osmanthus. So a lot of accords that I'm getting with this, I am getting with this as well, just much more stripped off of a lot of those polarizing notes. So if you were to remove all of the spices, the osmanthus, and just keep that backbone DNA, you'd end up with something similar to this fragrance right here. It's important to mention that I'm not the craziest about Gucci Guilty Elixir. I do love Amouage Reflection, and this one is much more of a modernized take and an easier wear than both of those fragrances. It is what it is. They're still great fragrances, but these are just easier to wear. Now, in terms of the performance for both of these, they last almost all day. I'd give this about 8 hours, and the projection is about 2 to 3 hours. With this one, my God, I did not expect this to project for 3 to 4 hours as it did. In terms of the longevity on clothing, it lasted 8 to 9, maybe even 10 hours, but we're just gonna say 8 to 9 hours. It's absolutely pretty potent, and it does project, and it got me a compliment. Literally, I tested this on, and I made a little short, and I walked into Target, and within about 20 minutes of wearing, I got my first compliment from a lady that was walking in the store. I was carrying my little dog food that I bought from Target, and she was like, whatever you're wearing smells amazing. And it was this bad boy. So another one added to the YSL MYSLF lineup. I personally think that it's a great fragrance. In terms of mass appeal, I don't think many people are going to enjoy this one as much as the original. And for those who like more ambery, rich, and more oriental-esque style fragrances, are more than likely going to enjoy this one. This wasn't really much of a fragrance that was like sexy or seductive. It was just one that was fresh, fun, flirty, easy to wear and signature, and they tried to make something that was sexy and testing and daring out of the fragrance, and I guess I respect their take. However, I will say that the original just has points in terms of almost everything, while this one might hit or take a couple shots down in terms of mass appeal. So total rating, I would give this one about a 9.5, and for this one, a solid 9. I wanted to say 8.75, but I truly enjoyed rocking this. It might not be for everybody. That patchouli, amber, and that really intense, almost earthy orange blossom might not be for everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. That's pretty much all I have to say about YSL MYSLF Le Parfum. It smells like a true flanker that just takes the original and denses things up and warms it up, making it a bit more nighttime appropriate. Make sure to leave a like, hit that subscribe button. Till the next one, peace.